Today, we're going to dive into one of the most real and disturbing fears of modern life, with 7 terrifying stories involving stalkers. Get ready to hear chilling accounts of obsessive stalking, constant surveillance, and the psychological terror caused by people who turn normal lives into daily nightmares. We will explore stories of victims who have faced the darkest side of human obsession and how seemingly harmless situations can escalate into scenarios of true terror. So sit back, make sure your curtains are closed, and let's get started on this spine-chilling journey. Oh, and before anyone starts following you, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like. This really helps the channel and ensures you don't miss out on any terrifying content like this. Let's go. The fake profile. The case of James Mackenzie was documented by Police Scotland as one of the most disturbing stalking incidents in the city's recent history. James, a 34-year-old architect, lived a relatively ordinary life in Edinburgh, dividing his time between his office in the Old Town and his flat in Leith. It was during a routine lunch with colleagues that his life changed drastically. "Did you see what you posted last night?" asked her colleague Sarah, referring to an alleged Instagram post. When James responded that he hadn't posted anything, Sarah showed him her phone. What James saw chilled him: a profile with his name, his profile picture, and more than 200 posts detailing his daily life. The most recent post showed James on his sofa the night before, reading a book, a scene that had taken place in his apartment, behind closed doors. "My first thought was that someone had broken into my apartment," James later reported. "But then, I realized the photos had been posted for months, documenting my daily routine." The profile included photos of James walking to work, eating dinner alone, shopping, mundane moments that now felt violated. Even more disturbing, the captions were written in the first person, as if they were posted by James himself, often including thoughts and feelings he was supposedly having. "Today, I'm feeling melancholy, thinking about that relationship that could have worked out if I hadn't been so selfish," read a caption under a photo of James looking out a cafe window. Horrified, James immediately contacted police and reported the profile to social media platforms. While awaiting the official investigation, he began his own search for answers. Carefully examining the photos, he realized that most had been taken from specific angles, from buildings across from his office, across the street from his favorite cafes, and most alarmingly, from the building across from his apartment. "I started to feel constantly watched," James said. "Every time I went out, I looked for cameras, for someone following me. Paranoia took over my life." Although the profile was removed after complaints, a new one appeared within a few days, always. With more recent photos, James changed his routines, installed blackout curtains, and even considered moving out. That's when he received a direct message on LinkedIn from an anonymous account. "You can change your habits, but you can't escape me. I'm closer than you think." The police investigation progressed slowly until James remembered a crucial detail. One of the captions mentioned 5 years waiting for recognition. This led him to think about events from 5 years ago. "That's when I remembered Claire," he explained. Claire Donovan had been an intern at the architecture firm where James worked. She had shown romantic interest in him, and he gently rejected her. The internship ended, and James never thought about it again. By providing Claire's name to authorities, the investigation gained momentum. It turned out that Claire had moved into an apartment directly overlooking James's 4 years ago. Even more disturbing, she had taken a job at the same coffee shop he frequented daily, and later as a receptionist in the office building across from his office. "She had built her life around mine, creating strategic vantage points," said James, visibly shaken. "For years it documented every aspect of my existence without me even realizing it. A search of Claire's apartment revealed the true extent of the obsession, An entire room had been transformed into a kind of shrine dedicated to James. Walls covered with thousands of photos organized chronologically, diaries detailing his daily movements for years, and even objects stolen from his apartment. From old bills to used toothbrushes. Most alarmingly, police found detailed blueprints of James's apartment, with notes on how to get in undetected, and a diary outlining plans for a future together that became progressively more disturbing in its later entries. "Plan B is the only way now," the last entry read. "If we can't be together in life, we will be together in eternity." Claire was arrested and diagnosed with erotomania, a psychological disorder characterized by delusions that someone else is in love with the patient. During interviews, she calmly maintained that James secretly loved her and that they were destined to be together. For James Mackenzie, the experience left deep psychological scars. "The most disturbing thing," he reflected during the trial, "was not just the invasion of privacy, but realizing that someone had witnessed every moment of my life for years, constructing a distorted narrative around me while I lived completely oblivious." The case led to a review of stalking laws in Scotland, with specific new provisions for digital stalking and non-consensual monitoring. And for the thousands of social media users in Edinburgh and beyond, the fake profile case serves as a grim reminder that sometimes our online lives can be manipulated by those who silently watch from the shadows, turning private moments into a public spectacle to fuel disturbing obsessions. Claire Donovan was sentenced to compulsory psychiatric treatment for an indefinite period. James moved to another city and rarely uses social media these days. The anonymous admirer, David, a respected 42-year-old professor of English literature, had taught at Cambridge University for more than a decade, building a solid career and a peaceful life. Everything changed on a Tuesday in October when he opened his institutional email inbox and found a message with the subject, "Admiring from afar." "Initially, I thought it was just a student expressing appreciation for my work," David later reported. "It happens occasionally." The content, however, quickly turned out to be different. "Dear Professor Mitchell, I've been watching you for some time. I loved your article on Keats that you wrote last night, especially when you deleted that paragraph about ephemeral beauty at 2347 and rewrote it. The second version was much better. I also noticed you ordered Thai food again, third time this week. Maybe it should vary a little. An attentive admirer." David felt a shiver run down his spine. The email mentioned details that no one could have known: the exact time of its edit, the specific content it had changed, even its dinner order. Over the next few days, the emails continued, always from different addresses, but clearly from the same sender. Each message contained disturbingly accurate observations about his private activities. "Your video chat with your sister in Australia earlier today was touching. You seemed concerned when she mentioned her health problems. I hope she gets better." That anxiety symptoms search you did at 2:14 a.m. worried me. "Are you not sleeping well? Maybe I can help." David changed his passwords, installed antivirus, and even took his computer for a professional checkup. Technicians found nothing suspicious. Still, the emails continued, each time revealing intimate knowledge of his online activities. "That's when I realized it wasn't just my email that had been compromised," David explained. "Someone was monitoring everything I did digitally." The situation escalated when David started ignoring messages. The admirer's tone changed drastically. "Why are you ignoring me, David? After everything we've shared, maybe your ex-wife Emma would like to know about those searches you did on her last week. Or would your colleagues be interested in those? Frustrated emails you drafted and never sent?" Terrified, David finally went to the police. The assigned detective, who specialized in cybercrimes, suggested a strategy: continue using the computer normally while they monitored the university. Network for suspicious activity. For 2 harrowing weeks, David lived knowing that every key he pressed could be being watched. The emails continued, becoming progressively more possessive. "We're perfect together, David. I know you better than anyone. I know what you type, what you delete, what you hesitate to write. I know your innermost thoughts. No one will ever understand you like I do." The investigation took a turn when the university's IT department detected sophisticated spying software installed not on David's computer, but on the central router serving his department. The program intercepted all digital traffic passing through that specific node. "It was extremely technical work," explained the researcher. "Whoever did this had advanced knowledge of digital security and physical access to the university's infrastructure. Police set up a discreet operation monitoring who accessed the server room. After a week, they caught someone coming in the middle of the night, Rebecca Collins, an IT technician who had only worked on campus for 6 months. The search of Rebecca's apartment revealed the true extent of the obsession. She had created a meticulous file on David, with screenshots of every email he sent or received, records of all his online searches, and even recordings of his video calls. The walls were covered with photos of David taken on campus, many with detailed notes about his routine. More disturbingly, they found a diary detailing how Rebecca had specifically applied for the job at Cambridge to be close to David, after watching a lecture he gave online during the pandemic. The diary revealed a completely imaginary relationship between them, in which David's online activities were interpreted as secret messages to her. "He searched Italian restaurants in Cambridge today," read one entry. "Clearly he's planning our first official date. He knows I love Italian food." During the interrogation, Rebecca calmly maintained that she and David shared a special connection and that he subconsciously wanted to be watched by her. For David Mitchell, the experience completely transformed his relationship with technology. "The most disturbing thing," he reflected, "was realizing that every private moment, every thought I committed to my computer, was being witnessed and interpreted by someone who had built an alternate reality around my most mundane actions." The case has led to a complete review of digital security protocols at the University of Cambridge, with new measures to protect the privacy of staff and students. And for the thousands of academics who daily entrust their most intimate thoughts and unpublished work to digital devices, the case of the anonymous admirer serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the digital walls we assume are private can be surprisingly transparent to those determined to look through them. The perfect photograph Mai Tanaka's case was documented by the Kyoto Metropolitan Police as one of the most disturbing stalking incidents in the city's recent history. The events of those 3 months were reconstructed from police records, digital evidence, and Tanaka's own testimony. Mai, a 29-year-old photographer specializing in still life and traditional Japanese architecture, had built a solid reputation through her online portfolio and exhibitions in small Kyoto galleries. His meticulous work and unique eye for detail have earned him a dedicated following. It was a message from a follower that first drew his attention to something strange. "I loved your new series, but why are you posting such similar variations?" asked a regular fan in a comment. Confused, Mai checked her profile and discovered an account called Reflexo de Mai that had begun posting nearly identical recreations of her photographs, sometimes just hours after she posted her original work. "Initially, I was flattered, although a little uncomfortable," Mai reported. "Imitation is a form of flattery, I thought." This perception changed drastically when he looked more closely at the images. Each recreation contained a disturbing element. Mai's personal objects subtly positioned within the compositions. A scarf she had lost weeks before. A pair of reading glasses I thought I left at a cafe. Your distinctive keychain with a family amulet. More alarmingly, in a recreation of a cherry blossom still life that May had photographed in her studio, there was a teacup in the background. The same personalized teacup she kept in her kitchen, not in the studio. That's when I realized I wasn't just dealing with a copycat, May said, her voice shaking as she remembered. This person had been to my house. May immediately changed her locks and contacted the police, who initially treated the case as a simple online breach. With no evidence of a break-in and the objects being items she might have lost in public places, authorities suggested that perhaps it was just a dedicated fan. Determined to uncover the truth, May began her own investigation. She created a trap. She photographed a composition in her studio and deliberately included an item she had never shown publicly, a small sketchbook with a unique pattern she had drawn by hand. Less than 24 hours after posting the image, Reflexo de May published its version. The notebook was there, open to the exact same page. My blood ran cold, May recalled. That notebook had never left my bedside table drawer. Armed with this evidence, May returned to the police, who eventually began a more serious investigation. Meanwhile, the recreations continued, increasingly daring. In one of them, a mirror in the background of the image partially reflected the photographer, just a glimpse of a dark silhouette. The situation escalated when May received a direct message from the account. Your light was on late yesterday. The new project looks promising, but you should get more rest. Terrified, May spent the night at a friend's house. The next morning, Reflexo de May posted a new photo. May's empty bed with the caption, "Missing you, come home." The police installed security cameras in the apartment and outside. For 3 days, nothing happened. On the 4th night, cameras captured a man wearing a surgical mask and cap entering the building with a key. The images showed the intruder moving familiarly around May's apartment, meticulously photographing objects, occasionally touching her personal possessions with disturbing intimacy. Before leaving, he left a single cherry blossom on the table, exactly like the first photograph May had posted in her portfolio. The man was identified as Hiroshi Nakamura, a maintenance technician who had worked in May's building 6 months earlier. During that service, he had apparently made an unauthorized copy of his key. A search of Nakamura's apartment revealed the true extent of the obsession. An entire room had been transformed into a replica of May's studio, with identical lighting and similar equipment. The walls were covered with her photographs, interspersed with photos of May herself, taken without her knowledge, sleeping, working in cafes, walking the streets of Kyoto. More disturbingly, police found a calendar detailing her daily routine, and a diary describing how Nakamura had fallen in love with her after seeing an exhibition of her work. The diary revealed that he had entered her apartment dozens of times in recent months, sometimes just to feel her presence or sleep in her bed when she was away. "We are artistic soulmates," he wrote. "One day she will realize that I am perfecting her work, completing what she started." For Mai Tanaka, the experience completely transformed her relationship with her art and her personal space. What was most disturbing, she reflected, was not just the physical invasion, but how he transformed my artistic expression into something sinister. Every photograph I took inadvertently became a form of communication with someone who had completely distorted the meaning of my work. The case led to a review of security protocols in residential buildings in Kyoto, with new regulations on the control of key copies by maintenance staff, and for the thousands of artists who share their work online. The case of the perfect photograph serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the line between admiration and obsession can be dangerously thin, and that the images we share can reveal more about our private lives than we realize. What's up, guys? The stalker stories are chilling so far, aren't they? If you're enjoying these scary stories, how about taking a quick stop and subscribing to the channel? Just click the sign up button below and take the opportunity to leave your like too. This really helps the channel grow and motivates me to continue bringing you more terrifying content like this. It's quick and makes all the difference. Now, shall we get back to our stalker stories? There's still a lot of terror ahead. The co-worker Astrid, a 31-year-old marketing analyst, had been working at Nordic Solutions, a technology company in central Stockholm, for 5 years. His routine was stable and predictable until the arrival of Eric Bergman, hired as a data analysis specialist for his department. He seemed completely normal at first, Astrid reported later. Quiet, professional, maybe a little reserved. The first coincidences seemed just that, coincidences. Eric showed up at the same cafe where Astrid ate her breakfast most mornings. "I live near here now," he explained casually when she mentioned the meeting. Over the next few weeks, Astrid began to notice a disturbing pattern. Eric would show up at the restaurant where she had lunch regularly, always choosing a table with a direct view of her. When he mentioned to his colleague Lisa that he had started yoga classes on Tuesdays, Eric showed up at the same gym the following week. "That's when I started to get uncomfortable," Astrid said. "But I still tried to rationalize it, think it was just coincidences." Discomfort turned to alarm when, during a casual office conversation, Eric mentioned details about the neighborhood where Astrid lived, the name of the corner bakery, the park where she ran on Sundays, even though she had never discussed these aspects of her life with him. When asked, Eric smiled and said, "I also moved to Södermalm recently. It's an amazing neighborhood, isn't it?" Worried, Astrid began documenting the chance encounters. In 1 month, she recorded more than 20 occasions in which Eric appeared in the same places she frequented, often wearing clothes of a similar style to hers, or mentioning having watched the same programs that she had discussed with other colleagues the day before. The situation escalated when Astrid found Eric in the small supermarket near her apartment at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. When she asked directly what he was doing there, Eric responded with disconcerting matter-of-factness, "I live 2 blocks from you now. Didn't you know? What a coincidence." That night, a distraught Astrid searched Eric's name online and made an alarming discovery. Before being hired by Nordic Solutions, he had worked at 3 other companies, all of them Astrid's previous places of work, always joining shortly after she left. "It was as if an abyss opened beneath my feet," Astrid described. "I realized this hadn't started 2 months ago, but possibly years ago." Astrid took her concerns to the HR department, who initially treated the case as a misunderstanding. Without concrete evidence of harassment, they suggested that perhaps she was misinterpreting coincidences. Determined to protect herself, Astrid installed security cameras in her apartment and began drastically varying her routines. That's when he noticed something even more disturbing. No matter how unpredictable his changes were, Eric always seemed to anticipate his movements. The answer came unexpectedly. Lisa, her close colleague, embarrassedly confessed that Eric often questioned her about Astrid's plans. "He always made it seem casual, like he was just talking," Lisa explained. "I only noticed the pattern when you mentioned your concerns." With this new information, Astrid got HR to investigate more seriously. It turned out that Eric had improperly accessed Astrid's personal file on the company's system, including her home address and emergency contacts. The internal investigation led to Eric's dismissal, but the situation was far from resolved. The following week, Astrid began receiving deliveries of food she hadn't ordered, all from restaurants she regularly frequented. Then flowers were delivered to her apartment with cards containing unsettling messages. "I miss you at the office, and no one understands you like I do." When Astrid finally went to the police, they discovered that Eric had installed a tracking app on her phone during a work lunch months earlier when she briefly left the device unattended. A search of Eric's new apartment located less than 200 meters from Astrid's, revealed the true extent of the obsession. He had created a detailed map of all her routines, with photographs taken secretly over the years. More disturbingly, they found copies of her apartment keys and a diary detailing how he had repeatedly broken in while she was away. "Our tastes are identical," he wrote in one entry. "Every day confirms that we are soulmates. She just doesn't realize it yet." For Astrid Lindgren, the experience completely transformed her sense of security and privacy. The scariest thing, she reflected during the trial, was realizing that someone had meticulously studied every aspect of my life for years, recreating it as if it were a role he could take on. He wasn't just following me, he was trying to become a male version of me. The case led to a review of hiring and privacy policies at companies across Stockholm, with new guidelines on background checks and protecting employees' personal information. And for the thousands of professionals who share workspaces with strangers every day, the co-worker case serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the line between professional networking and obsessive observation can be dangerously thin. A familiar voice. Sophie Murray's case was documented by Police Scotland as one of the most disturbing incidents of stalking involving call centres in the city's recent history. The events of those 2 months were reconstructed from telephone records, call recordings, and Murray's own testimony. Sophie, a 26-year-old operator, had been working in customer service at Highland Insurance for just over a year. Like many of his colleagues, he dealt with dozens of calls daily, strictly following the company's protocols. It was during a particularly quiet night shift that Sophie answered a call that would change her life. "Highland Insurance, Sophie speaking. How can I help?" she said, following the usual script. "Hello, Sophie," replied a smooth male voice. "How was your lunch at Cafe Nero today? The chicken and pesto sandwich looked delicious." Sophie felt a shiver run down her spine. She had actually had lunch at Cafe Nero that day and ordered exactly that sandwich. "Sorry, sir, but I need your policy number to proceed," she replied, trying to maintain professionalism despite her growing discomfort. Sure, said the man, providing a valid number. "By the way, that blue blouse matches your eyes perfectly. You should wear it more often." Sophie was, in fact, wearing a blue blouse. After completing the call as quickly as possible, he reported the incident to his supervisor, who promised to check the recording and the customer number. 3 days later, the man called again, this time mentioning the conversation Sophie had had with her mother the night before about holiday plans. When asked how he knew this, he simply laughed and hung up. The calls continued, always from different numbers, always with the same man demonstrating disturbing knowledge about Sophie's daily life, from what she'd watched on Netflix to private conversations with friends. "I started to feel constantly watched," Sophie reported. "I checked over my shoulder on the way home. I kept the curtains closed. I stopped posting on social media." The situation worsened when the man began making comments about the interior of Sophie's apartment and mentioning her neighbors by name. In one particularly terrifying call, he described exactly what she was wearing at that moment in her own living room. Desperate, Sophie contacted the police, who began an investigation. Simultaneously, Highland Insurance's security team discovered something alarming. 3 months earlier, an unreported data breach had occurred where personal employee information was potentially compromised. "That's when we realized this wasn't just a disruptive customer," explained the detective in charge. "Someone had gained access to Sophie's personal data and was possibly using other forms of surveillance." The police installed security cameras in Sophie's apartment and began monitoring all incoming calls. The turning point came when the stalker made a mistake. During a call, he mentioned a detail about the new security system that Sophie had installed, information that he could only have obtained if he had access to the cameras. A technical investigation. revealed that the cheap security cameras Sophie had purchased online had known security vulnerabilities. The stalker had hacked the system and was literally watching her inside her own home. Using this information, police were able to track the IP address and identify the perpetrator. Malcolm Reed, a former employee in Highland Insurance's IT department, who had been fired for inappropriate conduct 6 months earlier. The search of Reed's apartment revealed the true extent of the obsession. He had created a command center with multiple monitors displaying live feeds from the cameras in Sophie's apartment, recordings of her phone calls, and even a map detailing her every daily movement. More disturbingly, police found a diary detailing how Reed had fallen in love with Sophie's voice during his call center training when he was still working at the company. After his dismissal, he had used his knowledge of the systems to access his personal data and begin what he called a true relationship beyond conventional social limitations. "She knows me better than she thinks," he wrote in one entry. "Every time I talk to her, our connection deepens. Soon, we will be ready to meet in person." The plans for this date were found in disturbing detail, including a blueprint of Sophie's apartment with entry and exit routes marked. For Sophie Murray, the experience completely transformed her sense of security and privacy. "The most terrifying thing," she reflected, "was realizing that the walls of my own home were essentially transparent. Every moment I thought I was alone, every private conversation, every casual gesture, everything was being observed and catalogued by someone who had constructed an alternate reality around me." The case has led to a complete review of data security protocols at call centers across Scotland, with new regulations on how employees' personal information is stored and protected. And for the thousands of operators who field calls from strangers every day, the case of Family Voice serves as a grim reminder that the fine line between customer service and personal exposure can be dangerously exploited by those with obsessive intentions. The dating app Ryan, a 32-year-old physiotherapist, had recently moved to Melbourne after the end of a long-term relationship. Following the advice of friends, he created a profile on the dating app Connect, hoping to meet new people in the city. At first, it seemed to be working exactly as it should, Ryan later reported. "I was talking to some interesting people, arranging casual meetings. One of those dates was with Olivia, a graphic designer who seemed to share many of his interests. They met for coffee, and although the conversation went well, Ryan didn't feel a romantic connection. At the end of the meeting, he politely explained that he would like to maintain just a friendship. She seemed to take it well," Ryan recalled. "He smiled, said he understood perfectly, and we said goodbye cordially." 2 weeks later, Ryan started receiving messages from a new profile, Megan, a nurse who had just moved to Melbourne. The conversation quickly deepened, with Megan demonstrating surprisingly similar interests to Ryan and opinions that mirrored his on almost every topic. "It was like she was the female version of me," Ryan explained. "I liked the same obscure movies, had the same views on politics, even shared my specific distaste for avocado, something I had casually mentioned to Olivia during our coffee." After a few weeks of intense conversation, Ryan and Megan arranged to meet up. She cancelled at the last minute, citing a work emergency. The same happened on the second attempt. The third time, she simply didn't show up, later explaining that she had been in a minor car accident. Meanwhile, Ryan had started chatting with another woman on the app, Jade, a yoga teacher who also seemed strangely aligned with his tastes and values. The pattern was repeated: immediate connection, deep conversations, but always with obstacles when they tried to meet in person. "That's when I started noticing disturbing similarities in the way I wrote," Ryan said. "Certain phrases, specific typos, response patterns, they were subtle but consistent across profiles. His suspicion grew when both Megan and Jade began asking increasingly personal questions about his daily routine, address, details about his apartment, and even financial information, always cleverly inserted into seemingly casual conversations. Concerned, Ryan mentioned his suspicions to a friend who worked in digital security. Together, they analyzed the profile photos using reverse image search tools and discovered that they were all of stock models subtly altered. Confirmation came when Ryan, following his friend's advice, made up a story about winning tickets to a concert taking place over the weekend. Both Megan and Jade responded enthusiastically, saying they loved that specific band, which Ryan had completely made up. "That's when I knew for sure I was being manipulated," Ryan explained, "but I still didn't know by whom or why." The answer came unexpectedly. Ryan received flowers at his workplace with a card signed "From someone who really understands you." Recognizing the handwriting as similar to Olivia's, who had left a note after her coffee, he finally connected the dots. Ryan reported the situation to the police and the dating app support team. The investigation revealed that Olivia had created at least 6 different fake profiles to interact with Ryan, each carefully crafted to appear as her perfect match, based on information she had gathered during their brief encounter and subsequent observation of his online activities. Even more disturbing, it turned out that Olivia had obtained Ryan's work address through online searches and had been monitoring his movements. Security records showed that she had visited the building where he worked several times, apparently observing him from afar. A search of his apartment revealed a wall dedicated to Ryan, with secretly taken photos, screenshots of every conversation, and detailed notes about his preferences, routines, and perceived vulnerabilities. A diary contained elaborate plans for a future relationship, including how she would gradually reveal the truth after he was too emotionally invested to leave. "He needs to know every version of me before he understands that I'm all he needs," read one disturbing entry. For Ryan Cooper, the experience completely transformed his relationship with online dating. The scariest thing, he reflected, was not just the manipulation, but realizing how information I casually shared could be used to create such a convincing illusion. She was essentially studying me like a research project, learning exactly what to say to create false emotional connections. The case led to a review of security policies on dating apps in Australia, with new measures for identity verification and detection of multiple profiles created by the same user. And for the millions of people who use dating apps daily, the dating app case serves as a grim reminder that sometimes the seemingly perfect connection can be carefully manufactured by someone who is playing not just a fake profile, but multiple identities created specifically for manipulation. The hidden camera Lise Müller's case was documented by the Austrian Federal Police as one of the most disturbing incidents of invasion of privacy in the city's recent history. The events of those 5 months were reconstructed from police records, digital evidence, and Müller's own testimony. Elise, a 29-year-old music teacher, lived alone in a charming apartment in the Neubau district. His routine was smooth and predictable, until that December afternoon, when he received an anonymous email with just one line of text and a link. "You should see this." Initially hesitant, Elise ended up clicking on the link, imagining that it could be material related to the conservatory where she taught. What she saw on the screen transfixed her: a live feed from inside her own living room, where she had been practicing her violin just an hour before. "It was as if the ground disappeared beneath my feet," Elise later reported. "I was looking at my own house from an angle that suggested a hidden camera in the smoke detector." Trembling, Elise explored the site and discovered to her horror that it wasn't just her living room that was being broadcast. There were separate feeds for her bedroom, bathroom and kitchen, each with a suggestive title and counters showing hundreds of views. More disturbingly, the stream had been active for nearly 5 months, with an archive of videos categorized by date and content, intimate moments from her daily life, from her morning routine to moments when she was changing or showering. The idea that strangers had been watching me for months in my most private moments was devastating, Elise said, her voice still shaking as she remembered. Elise immediately left the apartment and contacted the police. A cybercrime team found 5 tiny cameras cleverly hidden in his apartment, on the smoke detector in the living room, on a wall clock in the kitchen, camouflaged in the frame of the bathroom mirror, inside the lamp in the bedroom, and one on the bookshelf aimed at his piano. The investigation revealed that the cameras were connected to a wireless transmitter installed in the building's basement, sending the feed directly to a private server. The website hosting the stream required payment for full access to the archive, with nearly 300 active subscribers. It wasn't just voyeurism, the chief investigator explained. It was a sophisticated commercial operation, monetizing the invasion of privacy. The big question remained, who had installed the cameras? Elise's apartment had not been broken into, and the cameras were positioned with detailed knowledge of the layout and her habits. The answer came through an analysis of the building's maintenance history. 5 months earlier, Elise had reported problems with the electrical wiring. The caretaker called an electrician who spent several hours in the apartment while she was at work. I remember he was extremely meticulous, Elise said. He checked every room, every outlet. At the time, I was impressed by his thoroughness. The alleged electrician, identified as Klaus Wagner, did not work for the company the janitor thought he had contacted. A search of her apartment revealed surveillance equipment, evidence of similar operations in 3 other apartments, and a computer containing detailed records of Elise's daily movements. Even more disturbing, the police found a notebook with notes about Elise's habits, clearly compiled through prior observation even before the cameras were installed. Wagner had apparently studied her routine for weeks, observing her from nearby cafes and occasionally following her to determine her schedule. He specifically chose Elise, the investigator reported. It wasn't random. He looked for women who lived alone, with predictable routines and regular periods away from home. For Elise Müller, the experience completely destroyed her sense of security and privacy. The most devastating thing, she reflected, was realizing that my personal sanctuary, the place where I felt safest, had been turned into a spectacle for strangers. Every memory in my apartment was now tainted. The subsequent investigation revealed that Wagner had been operating a profitable online voyeurism business for at least 3 years, with victims in several Austrian cities. He carefully selected his targets, created false identities as maintenance professionals, and installed nearly undetectable surveillance equipment. The case led to a review of regulations for maintenance workers in Vienna, with new requirements for identity and credential verification. It also triggered a wave of home inspections across Austria, with dozens of unauthorized surveillance devices being discovered. For Elise, recovery was a slow and painful process. She moved to another apartment in another city and spent months in therapy dealing with the trauma of the privacy violation. He eventually turned his experience into activism, founding an organization that helps victims of similar crimes and promotes home safety awareness. I will never be the same person again, she said during Wagner's trial. But I refuse to allow him to steal my future as well. Klaus Wagner was convicted of multiple counts of invasion of privacy, criminal voyeurism, and distribution of intimate content without consent, receiving a sentence of 8 years in prison. The site was taken down, although authorities admit that copies of the content likely continue to circulate on obscure internet channels. And for the millions of people who consider their homes to be safe, private spaces, the case of the hidden camera serves as a grim reminder that in the digital age, the walls that protect us can hide invisible eyes, turning our most intimate moments into entertainment for strangers without our knowledge or consent. And so we come to the end of our 7 horror stories involving stalkers. So what did you think? Which story gave you the most goosebumps? Will any of them make you pay more attention to the people around you? Tell me in the comments which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this dive into the terrifying world of stalkers, don't forget to leave a like. This really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep bringing more scary content like this. And if you are not yet registered, take the opportunity now to sign up and activate the bell.